Chapter 2. Comic Book Paper. Friday, May 15th. Exhausted and therefore easily aggravated, all I wanted in the last few weeks before graduation was to skip lecture and sleep. I walked into my last class that Friday and uneasily sat down next to Cody and Vanessa, hoping they wouldn't notice my restlessness and pelt me with questions. Hey, are you feeling okay? Cody looked over at me. Yeah, you look pale, Vanessa agreed, her eyebrows lowered. Lately I've been getting lightheaded. My hands shake, and I get extremely dizzy. I'm thinking I might have low or high blood sugar, I responded after a few seconds. Well, I don't think it's high blood sugar, Forrest. I haven't seen you eat sweets since, well, I don't remember. Vanessa moved close to me. And you drink like 3 times a month, so that can't be it. Yeah, it just started happening last week. I swallowed hard, scared I'd vomit if I didn't. But it's been several times since then. We should go to the nurse just to get you checked out on our break. It shouldn't take long. With Cody and Vanessa walking on either side of me to the nurse's office on the first floor, I felt a little better. Frankly, seeing her office just up ahead, I thought about turning around. No, Forrest. Cody grabbed me by the arm and steered me back after I tried to make a break for it. Have a seat, Ms. Nevin said, pulling out a manila folder from her desk and going over it. I told her about what I had been experiencing over the past few days. She took my blood pressure and a saliva sample. I'll call you back into my office when I get the results. For now, take it easy and walk with a friend, just in case you feel like you're going to pass out. Walking into my last class for the week, a cold sweat started to prickle up over my body. I felt panicked and didn't know if I'd be able to make it through class. Mr. Clemens, please sit down, Mr. Enner said, looking over at me. I'm not done with my presentation. I don't feel well, I whispered. There's only 20 minutes of class, then you can go to the nurse, he said, hesitantly. I sat back down and tried to push off the stares of my classmates. A knot that started in my stomach burned in my chest, up my esophagus and seared my throat. I leaned over to my left, closed my eyes and felt my insides empty in a painful heave. He said he didn't feel well, Vanessa yelled, getting up and rushing over. You're cleaning that up. This is your class and you told him he couldn't go. She and Cody rushing me out of the room. I quickly ran over to the first stall in the men's restroom and continued emptying my gut till only clear liquid came out. I heard Ms. Nevin's voice behind me. She lightly touched my back. Forrest, here, she said, handing me a glass of water. He's going home, Vanessa stated next to me. I'll let his professor know, Ms. Nevin said, moving around me. Forrest, I'd go see a doctor as soon as possible. It could be the flu or some kind of bug, but it's better to get it checked out. 4:37 p.m. You're lucky it's Friday. You can rest over the weekend. I'll be over every day to come check in on you. Cody and I will, anyway, Vanessa said as we left the hospital and got into her truck. The cramps in my stomach tightened even more over the next few hours as Vanessa and Cody said their goodbyes after dropping me off at my house. I stayed in a curled position with my head and heart pounding rapidly on my bed, the blankets around me drenched. The doctors said the blood work came back negative for any known thing and that I should hydrate and rest over the next few days. Just the idea of eating or drinking anything made me want to vomit. Going to lay on the floor of my bedroom, I shook uncontrollably as my body couldn't decide whether it was hot or cold. Only getting 5 to 10 minutes of sleep every few hours, crying and shivering was all that I could do. 11:29 p.m. Hey Forrest, are you okay? Jen knocked on the door annoyingly loud. Slowly opening it, the door's creaking hinges burrowed into my temples. Forrest, she gasped, rushing to me on the floor. "No, don't touch me," I cried, reaching out to her and trying to push her back. "Forrest, I'm calling someone." 12:15 a.m. "Please, he's really sick," Cody said, setting me down in a chair. Still shaking uncontrollably, I kept my hand over my eyes because the light was just a little too much. I was thankful Cody and Vanessa had let go of me. The pressure from their grip almost felt like fire touching my skin. Feeling myself slip unconscious, I let my head drop. Sunday, May 17th. Waking up to a dim light across the room, my throat cracked and sore, I peeled my eyes open and looked around at Cody, Vanessa, Rachel and Jen, all wearing face masks. Jen noticed I had opened my eyes and walked over to my bedside. "Forrest, how are you feeling?" Hearing her speak, the rest gathered, all concerned. What day is it?" "Sunday the 17th. You've been asleep for a day now." "What's happening to me?" "The doctors don't know," Vanessa said in a confused voice. "They said they've never seen anything like this. You have nothing in your blood that could be affecting you and the flu and strep weren't detected. But I feel like I just got hit by a car." I tried to sit up. "Yeah, we can imagine," Cody said, stepping forward. "You have extremely low blood pressure, a fever of 104, you were extremely dehydrated, they said your brain had swelled, and your heartbeat is so weak. We told Mom," Jen said, touching my hand. "She said to keep her informed on how you're doing. Forrest, they want to keep you in for a little longer. They want to monitor you till they figure out what's going on." Jen took a step back as the doctor walked in. "Forrest, we'd like to do an MRI if you'll let us in the next 10 minutes. We have some ideas on what could be causing your conditions and we'd like to check." 5:54 p.m. Holding onto Rachel's, she held me gently. My hands shaking and trembling. With next to no strength, I got up on the MRI bed and stared blankly at the polished white tile floor. "Forrest, you're going to be okay," Rachel said, smiling at me. "They just want to see what's going on." "Rachel, if you could please step out of the room," a male doctor asked. "We'll be starting now. Forrest, I need you to lay down and try your hardest not to move. The sound can be a little intimidating, but it'll pass before you know it." I held my breath. The chirping, clicking buzzing of the machine rang through my body and almost made me feel empty, like I was a cold damp shirt taken off after being soaked by a cold rain. After the machine slowly died down, the bed moved back into place. With the hair on my neck settling, I sat up and looked at the nurse and Rachel coming back into the room and giving me a smile. I had forgotten how much Rachel looked like our mother when she was younger. Aside from the height difference and eye color, with a quick glance it would be easy to mix up the two. I gave her a soft smile back. She helped me up and we slowly walked back to the room in silence. The doctor coming back into the room was at a loss for words. "Well, Forrest, your vitals are telling a different story than your scans. Your scans say you're perfectly healthy, but your heart rate and blood pressure are so unstable and your temp is still 103. Your blood work is negative for anything. We even checked twice. You're in good health, but you were on the brink of going into cardiac arrest when you first came in. We'll think about letting you go when your temperature comes down. It's too dangerous to leave you alone with it that high." That Sunday night, I sat alone in the hospital room, fading in and out of sleep. I begged God I didn't really believe in that my temperature would come down long enough for me to be released tomorrow. Monday, May 18th. I woke up that morning with a minor headache. My body still sluggish, didn't feel as achy or restless. "Looks like your temperature has been stable all night," the doctor said, taking a few more notes. "You gave us quite a scare, Forrest. A nurse will be in here to help you get checked out." 10:46 a.m. I thanked the nurse and walked into the lobby. "We need you to sign a few papers," the hospital receptionist said. "And do you have a ride home? We don't encourage any vigorous activity like running or walking for too long, especially for someone who was so unstable. Your condition was so random and we still don't know what's going on. If you come in again with the same symptoms, you'll have to be put in quarantine." "Yeah, my friends are just outside waiting for me," I lied. Still feeling weak but needing fresh air, I pulled my hoodie and jacket up around myself and made my way back home. I didn't go into the house, but dug in my jacket pockets, found my car keys and drove out to Birch Tree Butte alone. 12:17 p.m. Laying down in the shade and grass under the trees, I felt better than I did in that hospital bed, as if my body were made of heavy clay. Every breath in and out of my chest felt exhausting, as if every exhale were the final one, the last one. Just for several moments, I didn't want to keep gasping for air. I just wanted my pumping heart to rest for a few moments. Turning my head slightly, I looked out over the rolling golden grasslands to my left and felt a light cool wind rush away from the dark blue storm clouds. It traveled over the grass and came to settle over me. A static crackling crawling up over my skin made my arm and neck hair prickle on end. Blinking wildly around, I slowly stood up. The wind on the grass almost sounded like an audible whisper that I could almost understand if I stood perfectly still. Sounding like it was coming from the thunderstorm from just off in the distance, I took a few steps forward, my ear leading me. In a split second that ripped at every cell in my body, a cracked explosion struck the tree closest to me. It forced me to curl up into an agonized ball. I yelled through clenched teeth, the pain burning alive, every nerve ending in me. I begged for it to stop. My muscles slowly relaxed and let my body go limp. In a cold sweat, I blinked away the haze from my eyes. Painful and stiff, I hesitantly reached out my sore limbs with no idea of how much time had passed. Mentally I checked myself, sat up and wiped my face on my shirt. I took a deep breath and looked around. The sun had moved through the sky, casting a different shadow that danced on my face. One of the trees only a few feet away from me must have been struck by lightning, I thought, walking over to it and putting my fingertips to its split trunk. Smoke still emanated from its white charred bark. I drove home in a daze. I pulled into the faded blue house's small driveway and took several deep breaths before going in. 7:23 p.m. I found Jen as I walked in, a soft smile crossing both our faces as I sat next to her. Pulling me in her arms, she let go and wondered if we could go get dinner. "No one has gotten you food?" I asked, looking at my phone. Shaking her head, "No." She sat quietly on the couch. "Hey Ray, why hasn't anyone made Jen any dinner?" "It's already 7, I said, feeling my anger boiling. With her back to me at the sink, Ray refused to turn around. "She hasn't said anything, and I'm not about to go beg her to eat." "So, you'll feed this drunk, lazy-ass man," I said, pointing at Ben passed out at the table, "but won't even ask your own niece if she's hungry. I don't have to feed you or her," she hissed, finally turning around to face me. "You forget one thing," I said, standing up to her and getting in her face. "My mom pays for all of your shit. She paid your house off, your car and for your phone. I help take care of your kids when you're drunk off your ass." I found myself yelling now. The least you could do was show some damn appreciation and make lunch and dinner for my sister when I'm away. "Get the fuck out of my house," she yelled, pointing to the door. "Get out now, or I'm calling the cops." Glad to leave, I quickly grabbed up mine and Jen's things, took her by the hand and walked out. I put her in next to me and clutched the steering wheel tight. Some family, I thought, in a voice that shook with hesitation. Jen looked over at me. "Forrest, where are we going to go?" "Far away from here." I said, looking over at her. We're going to get you some food, then we'll go get a motel somewhere. I'll call Mom, but we have to stay in town just for a little bit. And I hated that we had to, but I only had a few more weeks of class. Sitting next to her just outside Eagle Point, the only gas station in town, and eating cheeseburgers, I smiled softly at her. Want to go to the park? It's not too hot out. Nodding yes, she spoke. Forrest? Yeah, I won't be okay when I go away, but I understand. I'll just miss you. I'll miss you too, but remember what I said. I pushed my shoulder into hers. I remember. I belong next to you, I said after a moment, and you next to me. I hear you crying sometimes, Jen said, looking up at me. When you think you're alone, I wish you wouldn't cry so much, it makes me sad. I let the sound of birds and passing cars fill in where my response would be. I smiled over at her. Come on, let's go. I nodded to the car and pulled her up by the hand. After 2 hours at the park, we drove over to the small motel where our mom had gotten us a room. I talked to child services, she'd said. They're going to pay for the room until Rachel gets back. You just have to keep Jen and yourself going to school. Also, I'll send you money for food if you could pay for the gas. They're also going to be sending a worker to come check on you guys. Under a cold shower that night, I let my body relax, hoping the water would wash away my anxiety. Tuesday, May 19th. When I walked into class, Cody, Vanessa and seemingly everyone else couldn't take their eyes off me. I sat down and opened my laptop. It was almost too quiet in the class. I hesitantly looked around. Vanessa, where's Jason? Taking her time to respond, she leaned into me. In the hospital. What? Why? Yeah, I guess he got hit by a car last night, she whispered. They said he was walking home drunk and stepped out into the street. Is he going to be okay? I looked back down at my book. They don't know. I guess he's in coma. It's serious. I'm sorry, Forrest. For what? I asked, shaking my head. I know you liked him. Well, he was okay, I said, trying to find my voice. Just okay? He's all you ever talked about. She looked at me, confused. There's also something else, Forrest, but I'll tell you later. 12:15 p.m. I got a text from Mr. Close halfway through class. I said, turning around to face Vanessa and Cody. I reluctantly agreed to meet him after. I'm sorry about ditching out on our lunch date, I said, throwing my bag over my shoulder and putting my hands in my pockets. No, it's okay. We were just going to go do schoolwork at Cody's. Vanessa smiled. I softly knocked on the door, dreaming of Mr. Close's office. Hey, Mr. Close? Forrest, how are you? Come on in. I'm sorry, I said, sitting in the chair that faced his desk, to hear about Jason. They don't know if he'll make it. Leaning forward at his desk, Mr. Close took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Well, I hope he pulls out of it. It was odd. We had gone to the sweat just a few days ago and the medicine man said something. I hesitantly looked up. What was that? That Jason had very negative energy. Something had recently attached itself to him. What could it be? I asked, feeling my blood turn cold. Any kind of negative spirit or energy. It's tough to say, but whatever it is, it's not good. I heard the two of you got into some kind of fight. Is that true? No, I said, shaking my head. People will say what they want. Okay, yeah. I just wanted to clear the air. I know you guys were friends and I just wanted to fill you in. I know you had to scare yourself over the weekend. Do they still not know what it was? Yeah, they called me on my blood work. Still nothing. Getting up to leave, Mr. Close cleared his throat. Forrest, Mr. Holloway would also like to talk to you when you find time. Like, right now? I asked, getting to the door. Only if you have time. Oh hey, Mr. Close, would you mind giving Mr. Garrow my number? I have some things I need to talk to him about. I took a deep breath before I got to Mr. Holloway's door. I hated the anxiousness these guys gave me, just one after the other. I wanted to go get Jen and go back to the motel. Forrest, have you ever thought about sticking around here after college? Mr. Holloway asked as I walked into his office and sat down. You mean find a career here? I let my backpack fall in between my knees. I could get you a job working for the city. You could live a very, very comfortable life here, pulling in almost $200,000 a year right off the bat. Wow, that sounds amazing. What would I be doing? Working for the governor, Mr. Holloway said, standing up and looking out the window, helping out the big-name companies, traveling from city to city, all while working your own hours. Did a position just open up? It's a relatively new one. Yeah, he answered. How do you know the governor? I wondered. I'm a part of the city's council. We meet every week. You should think about it. I could put in a good word for you. I know they're looking for someone. I have no education in politics. My degree is in environmental science, so I'm not sure what help I would be. They'd send you to school while you work. Like I said, it's make your own hours, so you'd have time to balance both. Think about it, won't you? Yeah. I'm waiting to hear back from Kansas State on an internship there for my master's. I'll let you know what they say. Happy that my phone was ringing, I stood up. I have to take this. I'm sorry, I said, not glancing at the caller ID. As I put the phone to my ear and walked out, I saw Ray's name and let it go to voicemail. Forrest, you have a letter here. Ray's voice broke over the phone. It's the only one in the mailbox. I'll leave it there for you. Make sure you change your address. I quickly deleted it and decided that I'd have to go get it after work that evening. 4:15 p.m. I threw my bag on the motel bed closest to the door. Jen, who'd stayed quiet the whole car ride, sat down on the edge of one of the beds and sniffed. Not saying anything, I sat down next to her. We could call Mom, I suggested. That always makes you feel better. She's probably sleeping, Jen said in a soft voice. She loves to hear from you. She wouldn't mind. I moved closer, shaking her head. No, she stayed silent. Jen, you can tell me what's wrong. Some kids at school made fun of me. They were calling me names. Like, that I had no family and that I was alone. That I had no friends. I heard her voice crack. The bedside lamp flickering. Getting off the bed, I tried to get her to look into my eyes. It makes me sad because it's true, she said, hanging her head to cry. Wrapping my arms around her, I put my head to hers. It upset me that such a beautiful person was so sad. You know I love you, right? Mom loves you. And when you leave, then where am I going to belong? I know you're almost done with college and you're going to go stay with Kevin in Seattle. That's not for half a year, Jen. I'll come to visit you, but for the time being, you're going to have to stay with Rachel. She was fun the last time we hung out, right? Yeah. She wiped her eyes. Now imagine that, but every day. Close, she said, smiling. I knew I couldn't belittle her emotions. I knew that to her, her emotions were valid and very real. Just because I saw a little more of the bigger picture than she did, I didn't want to burden her with even more confusing details. Here, come on. Let's call Mom. I pulled out my phone. I let the two of them talk for over an hour. Jen finally handed me the phone and hopped into the shower. When I got out drying my hair, I pulled on my black work shirt and sat down. You're quiet, Forrest, Mom said over the phone. I'm just thinking. I imagined I was next to her and gave her a soft, quick smile. Why do you look at me like that? She asked. Like what? Like I'm a superhero. In my mind, I can see you sitting here quietly next to me. She spoke again after a long pause. I'm not one of the good guys on your comic book pages. Forrest, you shouldn't talk like that, Ma. Her voice shaking, she almost whispered, I was supposed to grow things. What kind of things? I asked, sitting up a little straighter. What do you mean? Good things, things to be proud of. Instead, I forgot my babies were standing next to me. You, my little army man. I didn't even glance over at you once. Unable to speak, a crack of pain escaped my dry lips. A smile from you would have been nice. I'm sorry I couldn't be your superhero, and I'm sorry I took for granted all the times you were right here next to me. Now it's getting to be too late and you're going to have to live with my mistakes. Sitting on the bedside, frozen, a knock at the door startled me. Quickly wiping my eyes, I stood up. Ma, it's okay. I should go to work in a bit. I'll call you tomorrow. Okay. Love you. Yup, have a good night. Stumbling to the mirror, I quickly fixed my hair and dried my eyes before getting to the door. Cody and Vanessa walked in. Hey, it's only for a few hours. I just don't want her to be alone, I said. It's no problem. We're just working on classwork. Vanessa held up a book and smiled. She's in the shower now. I told her you guys were coming over. Mind you, she was a little on edge earlier, but I think my mom cheered her up so she should be better. I wasn't going to work a full shift tonight so I should be back around 9:15. Putting on my hat, I quickly buttoned up my shirt. I drove to the back of Eagle Point. Working here for the past year and a half, it felt kind of nice, letting my mind get preoccupied with things other than school and family. The hours weren't so bad, and I enjoyed most of my coworkers, excluding my supervisor. Hey Forrest, Ms. Emerson said, walking in. Mr. Close told me you didn't get into Kansas State. You best keep trying. Don't give up hope. Where will you be applying next? A little confused, I tried not to show it. I had no idea what she was talking about and almost felt annoyed that Mr. Close had gone to her after we met. Forrest, I just stopped in for a pack of cigarettes. They're bad for you, you know, I said, handing them to her. I'll take my chances. I heard Mr. Holloway made you a great offer. You should consider it. Get you out of that motel and into a nice apartment. Yeah, I think I'm going to try just one more college. Really? She asked, surprised. Where's that? New Mexico. I lied, they have a great environmental master's program there. Well, you'll have to tell me the good news when they accept you. You'll be the first. I smiled. 9 p.m. I watched the clock move even slower as my shift came to an end. I rested my head on my arms. I honestly had no idea what Ms. Emerson was talking about. Did she know something I didn't? As far as I knew, I hadn't gotten any confirmation from Kansas State. I quickly mopped the floor and turned off the lights, locking up for the night. Pulling into the driveway of the house I had stayed in for almost 2 years, aggravation in my chest burned alive again. All the lights in the house off. Ray worked such odd hours that her constant absence was a blessing in disguise. Most of the time, it was just Jen and I unless Ben came in drunk, looking for food or a place to pass out. Quickly I grabbed the letter without looking at it, threw it into the passenger seat and drove off. 9:20 p.m. Hey, thanks again, guys, I said as Cody and Vanessa packed up their classwork. No problem. Hey Forrest, Cody said, pulling me aside. You know you and Jen could stay at my place or Vanessa's place. We don't have a problem with it. Patting him on the shoulder, I thanked him with a smile. "This is only temporary. My roommate wouldn't care," Vanessa said, walking over to us. "She loves kids and cooking for people. She thinks she's good at making food." Is she?" I asked. "Yeah," frowned Vanessa. "I hate it. I'll see you guys in class tomorrow." I walked them to the door. "Wait, what's that?" Vanessa looked at the letter in my hand. I finally looked at the address. Kansas State University. "It's probably a response to me getting into their master's program there. You could use a little good news," Vanessa said, smiling. "Open it." "I already know what it says." "No, you don't." "Okay, maybe you do. You're good at predicting things, and I mean it's almost scary, but you have to see it to believe it." "I didn't get in," I said, hiding it behind my back. "Forrest, you have to open it." "No, I don't," I said, handing it to her. Turning to face me, she sat down next to me. After a few moments, she opened the letter. With a solemn face, she looked at Cody and Jen, then back to me. "I'm sorry, Forrest, I'm not," I said, standing up. "They were just my first choice. I've already applied to 2 more around the country." Getting distracted, police and fire truck sirens just outside the door race eastwards past the motel. "I wonder what that's about," I asked, following Cody to the open door. Wednesday, May 20th. I rolled over and rubbed my eyes. The last 2 weeks of class were nothing but tests. After dropping Jin off, I had fallen back to sleep. Several hours later, I hopped into the shower. I wiped the sleep from my eyes and rubbed soap over my still slightly sore body. Feeling a slight tingle as I ran my fingers over my chest, down my stomach and down to my cock, I realized I hadn't jerked off in almost 2 weeks. Closing my eyes, I tugged at my shaft, trying to get hard. In the past I had imagined Jason on top of me, touching me, but after all that had happened, I pulled away from him, opened my eyes, and rinsed off. Pulling on my shoes and shirt, I decided I'd walk to the nearest place to get food. I jumped up off the bed looking for my wallet and keys. An abrupt knock at the door startled me. "Hello, is your name Forrest Clemens?" a tall man in a police uniform asked as I stepped out of the door. "Yes, what is this about?" I asked, my heart skipping every beat. "Do you have a moment we could talk?" "Sure." I looked around. "I'm Officer Yelston with the department here. I just wanted to ask you some questions about last night's fire. It was at your RNT's house if I'm not mistaken." "Hold up, is that what the sirens were for last night?" Her house burned down?" I asked, feeling my mind go numb. "Yes. Thank God there were no injuries. Is it true that you two got into an argument?" "What was that about?" I had just gotten out of the hospital from being sick, and when I got back no one made my sister Jen dinner and she hadn't eaten lunch that day. So, I was mad that we do our best to help her out and all she has to do is take care of Jen when I'm not around, and she couldn't even do that. "Did she kick the both of you out?" he asked. "Well, just me, but Jen didn't want to stay there without me." Officer Yelston took notes. "That's understandable. She's your younger sister. What did you end up doing last night?" "Hold up. Do you think I had something to do with her house burning down? Is that what this is about?" I asked, lowering my eyebrows at them. "Well, it just so happened that someone said they saw you at the house about 15 minutes before the fire department was called to the house. I just wanted to get your side." "Yeah, Ray called me early asking me if I could come get my mail. She asked me to stop by. Why is her house burning down being treated like a criminal investigation? If people were in it, it could have been bad, so we want to rule out any suspicious activity, you understand?" "I do," I said, rubbing my lower lip. "Where were you around 9:30 last night?" Do you still have her voicemail? I don't. After I got off work around 9, I grabbed my mail at Ray's, and while I was there, everything seemed quiet. Nothing out of place. All the lights were off, and Ray's car was gone. I assumed she was at work. I headed back here around 9:20. You could ask my friends Vanessa and Cody. They were watching Jen for me while I was at work. I'll look into it. Thank you for your time, and I'll keep in contact. I sat down on the bed and lay back. The stress of the day already had me anxious. I had to deal with the fact that Jason was in coma, final exams, Jen moving away next week, our mom coming to graduation, and now Ray thinking that I burned her damn house down. Fuck, I yelled, kicking the nightstand. While talking to Vanessa on the phone, I heard another knock at the door. I shut up, aggravation fueling me. God damn it. Someone else is here. I said to her, I'll call you back if I don't get arrested for something I didn't do. Forrest Clemens? Oh my God, you guys have to believe me, I said, opening the door to two police officers. I didn't burn her house down. I hate the woman, but I'd never do that. This is Officer Van Leer and I'm Officer Reeves. You're too late. Officer Yelston already interrogated me. He had a big bright light and he knocked my water cup off the table. It was very dramatic. Forrest, this is about your mother, E. Clemens. Feeling my blood run still, I hesitantly asked, what about her? Sunday, May 24th. I turned the car off that Sunday afternoon. Jen and I sitting together in silence, only lit by the bright glow of the sun. Looking over at her, I knew Jen didn't want to be here as much as I didn't, so the normal 12-minute car ride to church seemed to last 30. Too scared to blink. To breathe. I took my shaking hands off the steering wheel and held them between my knees. A voice I didn't recognize fell from my dry, broken lips. Jen, come on. We have to go into the church. I'm not going, Jen said, not moving after several moments. Unbuckling, I took a deep breath. You can't stay out here, it's getting dark. Forrest, I'm not going in, she said again. Her posture never changed as she sat forward looking at her hands. Jen, we have to go. I don't have to, she replied, her voice growing shaky. People are going to ask about you. What am I going to say? That I'm out in the car? No, just come in, Jen, I'm not doing this alone. No, Forrest, Jen, I said, wanting to yell, I'll be with you the whole time. We have to do this. No. Her voice finally broke. Looking up at me, tears falling off and over her lips, she begged, please, Forrest, please, please let's go, Forrest, please drive somewhere, anywhere but here. Where would we go? I yelled, gripping the steering wheel tight and fighting the painful lump in my throat. Jen, where would we go? Where are we going to go? Just you and I, Forrest, come on, she pleaded, reaching for the keys and desperately trying to start the car. The stray strands of hair that weren't pulled back stuck to her rain-stained face. Now crying, I yelled and looked wildly around. Jen, where are we going to go? Forrest, say you'll take me far away from here, she finally said, hanging her head to cry. 5:17 p.m. Detached from my emotions, I felt my normal point of view sink deeper, deeper into myself. Noticing Vanessa and Cody slightly, I couldn't feel each of them wrapping me in a hug. Their words, so distant, were muffled, almost inaudible. The service and burial, a blur, lasted slightly too long and were almost too short. I grabbed my mother's casket handles. The distance from the door to the hearse was only 8 feet. Almost too heavy with every second, I found myself desperately holding on to every word she had put into my head, her empty eyes, lonely smiles, and just for 1 second, I could feel her hand in mine, I knew as soon as I let go, from this moment on, I would spend the rest of my life begging an out-of-reach God for more time. Most people had a whole lifetime with their parents, but a blink of an eye was all I was given. I felt cheated and tossed aside. Anger came to rest in my blood. There are several moments just after the orange sun sets, when everything is painted light blue, the air turns cool, the clear streams turn black, the night stars finally come back into view. Jen and I ran as fast as we could up the dirt path up to the old school in Birch Tree Butte. I found myself almost begging, hoping, pleading to have left behind everything that had made me want to lose my breath and run as fast as I could in the first place. I saw flashes of my mother when I closed my eyes, and when they were open, tears stung them as we sprinted past the old school and stopped just next to the most north-facing tree. Off in the distance past the rolling gold hills, a dark blue summer storm poured white streaks of rain over the grasslands. Booming thunder rang in my chest. Yelling at the top of my lungs at the passing storm, I picked up what rocks and sticks I could and threw them in its direction. I knew what my mom would say as I crouched down clutching my stomach. I didn't want to be strong. I knew that I was breaking. I could feel it, the cracks in my chest growing, forming a void that scared me. Feeling almost alive, the cracks grew darker with every memory. A lump in my throat kept me from talking. I choked out my words as Jen came to stand next to me. Jen, I hope you only have beautiful memories from here on out. That's a nice thing of you to say, Forrest, Jen said, taking my hand in hers. One day, when I have everything figured out, I'll come for you. We can live a good life, just you and I, so when we part ways again it won't be because we have to, but because we've both grown and are ready to do it on our own terms like normal people. Thin strands of brown hair followed a hesitant smile across her face. Looking over at me, her voice was so quiet it almost got lost in the already still static air. She breathed, "I'd like that."